Before we begin, I would like to thank my very first patron, Keiki Art. If you want to become my second patron, go to patreon.com/RyanMurphyVerse. Patrons get these reviews and theory videos on Thursday nights, whereas the rest of YouTube gets it Friday. Also follow us on Twitter at RyanMurphyVerse. But enough about that, let's go on to the video. Obvious spoiler alerts for American Horror Story Apocalypse up to episode 3, and like usual I will start off with my review, then go into some theories, and there are timestamps in the pinned comment below if you don't care about my opinions. Okay, so the third episode of Apocalypse has arrived, titled Forbidden Fruit. So let's get into this episode and talk about the things I loved and the things I didn't. For me, this is the best episode of the season so far. This is the transition episode from what the early episodes are into the full-on crossover season. The witches have arrived, and now we know at least one witch has been there all along. So I'd like to begin with that. Mallory, she had her moment to shine this episode, whereas in the first two episodes she kind of faded into the background. In her consultation with Michael Langdon, Mallory begins to get anxious and wants to leave the room. Michael grabs her by the arm, and Mallory exhibits some witchcraft abilities. Michael is knocked to the floor, and all of the candles go out in the room. In retaliation, Michael sort of transforms into this demon-faced entity, maybe a hint at his true form of the Antichrist. That scene gave me so many chills, and I loved every second of it. Michael says that he thought he killed every one of them. We assume he's referring to every witch, but alas, he has found another. Which means maybe this shot from the trailer is a flashback to Michael Langdon visiting Miss Robichaux's academy to make sure the witches truly died after the bombings. But now we know not all of the witches are truly dead, and they have come to the outpost to resurrect Coco, Mallory, and Dinah. Madison Montgomery comes up to Mallory and says her classic line, "Surprise bitch, I bet you thought you seen the last of me," meaning Madison knows Mallory somehow. Mallory being a witch, as she showcased in the beginning of the episode, makes sense as to why Mallory is one of the three that Cordelia resurrects at the end of the episode. Coco and Dinah have no obvious indicators as to why they were chosen as well. Ms. Mead's backstory is revealed, although her memories are just programmed into her by Michael. But I love a good American Horror Story flashback, and these Halloween flashbacks were really nice. And yes, Mead is a robot, my bad. Brock, played by Billy Eichner, returns, and say what you want about Billy Eichner's previous work on American Horror Story, but this episode was far from anything he's ever done before. He's no longer a comedic relief. He's gone insane in the years following the apocalypse and literally stabs Coco in the face for leaving him. Coco's death scene was really well done, and I didn't expect her to die even though she is resurrected just minutes later. One question I do have, it could be a plot hole, but what were Mead and Venable planning to do with all the other Greys? If I remember correctly, the only people who ate the apples are the Purples and Mallory. So what happened to the rest of the workers? Mead shooting Venable was a great scene, although I'm a little sad we won't be seeing too much more of Venable unless she's resurrected or flashbacks are used. I'm still very confused as to what dental appliances Ryan Murphy and Sarah Paulson were referring to, unless there is a fourth Sarah Paulson character that they haven't revealed yet. It's possible that it was just an early concept of Venable and maybe they decided against whatever it was in the end, but I still would like to know what the plan was. Dental appliances is such an odd and specific thing to hype up, and it's just confusing at this point as to what they were going for. But anyway, I'm glad Venable is dead if that means that we can have Cordelia for the rest of the season. This episode was directed by Loni Peristier, pardon my pronunciation as usual, who has directed 2 episodes for Freak Show, 3 episodes for Hotel, and 1 Scream Queens episode. But this episode was done very well visually, so hats off to him. Interestingly, he did Devil's Night episode for Hotel, which was the Halloween episode, and he also did the Halloween Blues episode of Scream Queens Season 2. And now he's doing Apocalypse's Halloween episode. Anyway, that was just a fun fact, I guess, that I just came across when I was writing this, so I just shared it for probably no reason. Anyway, the episode was written by James Wong, who is a producer for the show, and he's written a few episodes, I believe. It was a well-written episode, so I applaud him as well. This episode was very well done, and it is easily the best of the season so far, in my opinion. But for things I didn't like, I would have to say the vomiting. I have a real phobia of vomit. It's called emetophobia, and I honestly couldn't watch that scene. But that's a me problem and not necessarily the show's fault, so I'll get over it. I think from now on the season can be one of the best seasons yet, so I give episode 9 Demon-Faced Michael Langdon's out of 10. Now on to the theories. First of all, there's just a few questions that this episode rose that I would like to pose to you to leave your responses in the comments if you want, or whatever. But how does Michael Langdon and Dinah Stevens know each other? And also, how do Madison Montgomery and Mallory know each other? Now let's go into the theories. This first theory is kind of weak. It's the only theory I could think of when I was trying to process the Ms. Mead flashbacks and Michael's revelations towards the end of the episode about Ms. Mead. My theory is seemingly obvious, but it may end up not being true. But perhaps Miss Mead was based on the prototype of Constance. As Michael says, she was programmed like someone very important to him as a child. The timeline does work. Jessica Lange was born in 1949, so the flashbacks would technically work if it is Constance's memories. But then why wouldn't Michael make Mead even resemble Constance at all? I feel like this might not end up being true. I mean, I haven't watched Murder House in a hot second, but off the top of my head, I don't remember knowing much about Constance's backstory. So I guess it's plausible that she murdered her husband on Halloween or whatever. But if that was the case, they could have at least given Ms. Mead a similar hairstyle to Constance to kind of hint at that's what they're going for. It wouldn't make sense for Michael to base it off Constance and not have anything resemble Constance at all. But again, I could be wrong. They could have just designed Ms. Mead's character costume to throw us off, which makes sense from the showrunner's standpoint, but not necessarily Michael's standpoint. That's just my loose theory that I came up with during this episode, but now let's go into the people on Reddit who are much better at this than me. So this first theory is in reference to Mallory. Reddit user LeechSeed222 says, I think Fiona is the person inside of Mallory trying to get out. It would make sense as to why Madison said that line to her in the final scene. Okay, so that is an interesting theory that there actually is someone trapped inside Mallory, but I don't think it would make sense for it to be Fiona. I think it may make more sense for it to be Zoe that's trapped in Mallory, if anybody really is trapped in Mallory. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I do think it's a creative theory, and if Zoe really is trapped in Mallory, that could explain why Mallory never really knew she was a witch before, and Madison doesn't really know Mallory. She knows Zoe, that's the person, whoever is trapped inside of Mallory. This next theory is in regards to the promo at the end of this episode for episode 4, called Could It Be Satan? And there is a really short shot of Michael Langdon entering a room, and it looks exactly like the Hotel Cortez. And so, the Hotel Cortez has not seen its last appearance in American Horror Story, and it will be shown in episode 4 or 5, or one of these upcoming episodes, but it's in the promo for episode 4. But this Reddit user says, is Michael at the Hotel Cortez? And what if he is resurrecting Queenie? What if he was recruiting fallen witches to add to his cause? That's interesting. I don't think he would be resurrecting Queenie because, like he said in this episode, he wants to kill them all. And maybe he was going there to make sure she was really dead, or maybe to get rid of her spirit even. I don't know, but I definitely do think Michael Langdon being at the Hotel Cortez does have something to do with Queenie, given that she seemingly died there. There's still debate on whether or not she died or not, but I definitely think that the Hotel Cortez scene in the future will involve Queenie. Another theory I've seen online a lot in regards to how Madison knows Mallory is that Mallory used to be Madison's assistant in Hollywood when Madison was doing those movies, and because we know Mallory lives in Hollywood and we know Madison used to be a movie star and she would need a personal assistant, so perhaps that's how they know each other. I do think that's plausible. And this, I'm just going to say this is off the top of my head because I know we've gone into this theory before. I believe I've mentioned it before. I know people in my comments have told me about it, and I enjoy this theory, although I don't think it'll ever happen. But it is the theory that Madison Montgomery in the American Horror Story world is an actress that played Chanel Oberlin. So that would mean Scream Queens is a television show in the American Horror Story world, and perhaps Mallory herself used to be an actress as well, and she played Chanel number 3 in Scream Queens. This is completely far-fetched, but it just plays into another theory that I know I've brought up again, and I don't think this is true at all, but I think it's fun to think about, and I know I've talked about it before, so I said it. But, okay, those are all my theories regarding this episode. I love this episode so much, and I can't wait for the rest of the season. Like, I wish we could watch episode 4 right now, because I'm so glad the witches are back. I'm so glad all the boring characters at the outpost are dead. No offense, but Coco, Mallory, and Dinah are the most intriguing at the outpost. So I'm glad they're here. I wonder if Evan Peters is playing anyone else besides Mr. Gallant and Tate Langdon, because he is a main cast member, and we know Tate probably only comes back for episode 6 in the Murder House flashbacks, so I wonder if there's a new Evan Peters character that we have yet to be introduced to, since he is a main cast member and Mr. Gallant just died. I hope they don't just resurrect everybody at the outpost. I think the 3 they chose are a good 3, but I do think either Evan Peters has a new character or Mr. Gallant might be added to the list of people resurrected. Let me know what you guys think about everything I talked about in this episode. Leave it in the comments. I try to reply to a lot of them. Make sure you subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. Consider joining my Patreon for early access to every video, exclusive patron-only videos, your name thanked in every video, among many other rewards. I'm not going to go into the whole spiel again, I've said it in previous videos, but visit patreon.com/RyanMurphyVerse and you can read all the tiers and why it helps my channel and all that, and follow me on Twitter at RyanMurphyVerse, and I will see you guys next time.